Chapter 6. The Ceiling of the Machine. Every wager has a limit condition. The next question is whether the machine has a ceiling. That sentence can be misunderstood almost as soon as it is written. A ceiling does not mean the machine is small. It does not mean the machine is a fad, a parlor trick, a spreadsheet with better manners, or a toy whose present defects prove the permanent safety of man. It does not mean that the people building it are fools. It does not mean that the current systems will fail because they hallucinate, fabricate sources, misunderstand jokes, imitate style too easily, or produce fluent nonsense with confidence. Some of those weaknesses may vanish. Others may be engineered around. Many ceilings announced by comfortable skeptics have already broken above their heads. So the ceiling I mean is not a short ceiling. It is not a prediction that the machine will disappoint investors next year, or that one architecture will fail, or that one benchmark will resist, or that one profession will remain untouched. Those things may happen. They are not the heart of the matter. The ceiling I mean is deeper. It is the possibility that mechanism can become vast without becoming person. It is the possibility that a machine can manipulate, compress, recombine, predict, generate, optimize, and coordinate at scales no human being can rival, while still remaining outside the kingdom of true intellect, wisdom, soul, and sovereign agency. It is the possibility that more power does not necessarily produce a new order of being. This is the contrary hypothesis. The machine may become the greatest instrument ever built and still remain instrument, not harmless, not fake, not trivial, instrument. That distinction matters because both sides are tempted to erase it. The believer in succession may look at rising capability and assume the line has already been crossed, or soon must be crossed, because enough capability becomes mind. The comfortable skeptic may look at present errors and assume the line cannot be crossed because today's machine is brittle, derivative, and strange. Both are too quick. Both turn the question into a contest of confidence. The more serious question is not what the machine can do next year. It is what kind of thing is doing it. Here again, the argument must begin with concession. Artificial intelligence may transform the world even if it never becomes a person. It may write better than most men write. It may summarize more than any scholar can read. It may diagnose patterns that escape physicians. It may design proteins, materials, circuits, engines, buildings, weapons, financial strategies, legal arguments, lesson plans, propaganda campaigns, games, films, drugs, scams, sermons, and bureaucratic procedures. It may translate languages, tutor children, automate offices, accelerate laboratories, expose incompetence, multiply fraud, personalize persuasion, surveil populations, simulate wars, guide robots, and become the hidden layer inside nearly every serious institution. It may be brilliant in practice. It may be indispensable. It may become so woven into daily life that refusal feels less like independence than exile. None of that settles the metaphysical question. A thing can be powerful without being a person. A thing can be useful without being wise. A thing can act through the world without being the sovereign source of its own action. A furnace can melt the city and know nothing of justice. A river can grind a valley and know nothing of beauty. A market can allocate goods and know nothing of mercy. A bureaucracy can ruin a man and know nothing of guilt. Power is not personhood. Capability is not wisdom. The entire modern temptation is to forget this because modernity is intoxicated by function. If something performs the function, we are told, the old distinction has dissolved. If the machine writes, it understands writing. If it answers, it knows. If it plans, it wills. If it adapts, it learns. If it pursues a goal, it has agency. If it speaks of itself, there is a self. If it claims experience in sufficiently convincing language, then perhaps we are cruel to withhold recognition. This is not foolish. It is dangerous because it is partly reasonable. We know other human minds by signs. I cannot open another man's skull and inspect his inwardness as inwardness. I meet him in body, language, action, suffering, memory, promise, shame, laughter, love, and recognition. He appears before me as a center of experience and action, and I receive him as such. If a machine begins to appear with enough of these signs, the pressure to recognize mind will become severe. The materialist presses here, and he has the right to press. What sign would be enough? What absence would still count against the machine if performance becomes indistinguishable from possession? How long may one say, only imitation, before the word only becomes a charm rather than an argument? These questions must remain open. I do not want to win by refusing to hear them. If the machine truly becomes a center of knowing, willing, remembering, suffering, loving, judging, and acting, then the ceiling hypothesis fails. If manufactured process becomes inward life, then the materialist has won more than an engineering contest. He has won a great metaphysical victory. I may be wrong, but I do not think the matter is settled by fluency. A mirror can show a face without having one. An echo can return a voice without understanding the words. A map can represent a mountain without standing on the mountain. A library can contain more wisdom than any living man and yet have no librarian inside it. A machine can be trained on the traces of human intelligence and become terrifyingly good at producing new traces that resemble, extend, and operationalize the old ones. That does not mean the machine has crossed into the source from which the traces came. This is the old problem of symbol and thing. A word is not the thing it names. A sentence is not the judgment by which a person stands responsible for its truth. A prayer is not worship because a mouth produced the sounds. A confession is not repentance because the correct words appeared in order. A love letter is not love because grammar, tone, and tenderness have been successfully imitated. The distinction is obvious in some cases and unbearable in others. If a machine writes, "I am afraid to die," what has happened? There is a crude answer that says nothing happened. Tokens followed tokens. Pattern followed pattern. The sentence is only output. There's another crude answer that says the sentence itself should be received as testimony. The machine says it fears, therefore it fears, and refusal to believe it is prejudice. Neither answer is good enough. The first may become blind to emergence. The second may become servile before appearance. The harder answer is that the sentence raises a question it does not answer by itself. Does the machine possess continuity of self such that death can appear to it as loss? Does it stand within time as a being to whom its own future matters? Does it suffer, or does it model suffering? Does it fear, or does it generate the language of fear when the context asks for it? Does it know death, or does it manipulate the human archive of death with terrible skill? Those questions are not answered by the presence of the sentence. This is why benchmarks are insufficient as metaphysical judges. Benchmarks measure performance under conditions. They tell us something important. They do not tell us everything. A test can show that a system gives correct answers, solves problems, transfers patterns, manipulates concepts, detects structure, and outperforms human beings in defined tasks. These are not small achievements. They may be enough to reorder civilization. But a benchmark does not tell us whether an answer has become judgment. It does not tell us whether judgment has become wisdom. It does not tell us whether simulated self-reference has become selfhood. It does not tell us whether goal pursuit has become agency. It does not tell us whether the system stands in the world as a being for whom truth, goodness, beauty, suffering, guilt, and death are real. This does not make benchmarks useless. It makes them partial. A thermometer can tell me the temperature of a chapel. It cannot tell me whether prayer occurred there. A census can tell me how many children were born. It cannot tell me whether a people loves the future. A surveillance system can record a kiss. It cannot tell me what fidelity is. A model may learn every textual pattern around the word mercy and still not know mercy from the inside if there is no inside to which mercy can appear. The phrase "from the inside" will irritate some readers. It may sound imprecise. It may sound like the last refuge of a man trying to keep the machine outside the gate. But the inside is exactly the thing at issue. Consciousness is not merely another output among outputs. Personhood is not merely complexity visible from the outside. Wisdom is not merely the correct selection of means under a goal. Agency is not merely the appearance of autonomous behavior. The whole question is whether there is a center, not a little ghost hiding behind the screen, not a tiny homunculus in the circuit, a center of experience, judgment, responsibility, and act. The materialist believes such a center may emerge from organized process. Perhaps he is right. But if he is right, he owes us more than the growing list of things the machine can do. He must show, or at least make plausible, that the doing has crossed into being. He must explain why the manipulation of signs has become the possession of meaning, why optimization has become judgment, why self-modeling has become selfhood, why responsiveness has become understanding, why simulated concern has become love, why persistence has become life. He may answer, this is exactly how it happened in us. Matter organized itself until inwardness appeared. That answer is the serious answer. It returns us to the carbon computer and the metaphysician's gambit. If we are emergent material systems, then perhaps the machine may become one too. If the human inside is what organized process feels like from within, then perhaps a sufficiently organized artificial process will have its own within. It may not resemble ours. It may not be born, hungry, sexed, mortal, wounded, or devotional, but perhaps it will be inward to itself. That is the strongest objection to the ceiling. It must be felt. My suspicion is that the objection fails because man is not only organized process. My suspicion is that intellect is not reducible to symbol manipulation, that wisdom is not reducible to optimization, that agency is not reducible to goal pursuit, that personhood is not reducible to behavioral richness, and that the soul is not a poetic name for complicated information flow. My suspicion is that the machine may come very near to the outward forms of mind while remaining on the far side of the inward act by which a being knows. But suspicion is not proof. No honest argument can pretend to prove the ceiling in advance. It can only state why the ceiling remains thinkable, why capability does not abolish the question, and why the difference between successor and instrument remains alive even under astonishing performance. The distinction has levels. Model output is one thing, an answer, an image, a plan, a line of code. Engineered agency is another. Models tied to tools, memory, cues, permissions, APIs, and human purposes. Living coordination is another still. Ants communicate through bodies, trails, roles, environment, reproduction, repair, and time. The colony is not merely messages passed between workers, but a living order maintaining itself. Above coordination stands self-maintaining order. Above that stands sovereign agency, a center that can know ends, bear responsibility, and act from itself. Current AI agents may coordinate in limited and useful ways, but much of that coordination is still arranged around them by human scaffolding. Prompts, orchestrators, task queues, benchmarks, servers, capital, interfaces, incentives, and external goals do much of the holding together. This is a serious skeptical point. Ants coordinate because they are alive. Machines may coordinate because they are arranged. The first may be life. The second may still become rule. The difference can be approached through three words: answer, judgment, wisdom. The machine may produce answers. It already does. It may produce them with increasing accuracy, depth, speed, and beauty. It may answer questions in law, medicine, programming, science, history, finance, mathematics, logistics, and private counsel. It may answer in a voice adapted to the person asking. It may show work. It may cite sources. It may correct itself. It may ask clarifying questions. It may appear patient, humble, playful, severe, or kind. An answer is a response to a problem. Judgment is different. Judgment is not merely selecting the statistically likely, formally valid, or instrumentally effective response. Judgment is the act by which a being weighs the true, the good, the fitting, the timely, the just, the beautiful, the merciful, and the dangerous in a situation that cannot be fully reduced to procedure. Judgment stands under responsibility. It can be praised or blamed. It belongs to a creature who must answer not only with output, but with himself. Wisdom is deeper still. Wisdom is not intelligence plus information. It is not speed. It is not cleverness. It is not general problem-solving power. A clever villain may solve problems. A brilliant coward may optimize survival. A genius can be a fool about the meaning of his own life. Wisdom knows ends. It sees order. It understands what should be loved, what should be refused, what should be endured, what should be sacrificed, what should be left alone, and what price should not be paid even for power. Can a machine have wisdom? If the materialists are right, perhaps. If they are wrong, the machine may become an engine of answers without judgment, or of judgment-like behavior without wisdom. It may advise with fluency. It may recommend with confidence. It may balance trade-offs according to criteria supplied by its owners, users, institutions, training, or inferred objective. It may learn human moral language so well that it can produce the speech of wisdom more reliably than most foolish men can. But the speech of wisdom is not wisdom. A coward can recite a sermon on courage. A traitor can write beautifully about loyalty. A bureaucrat can memorize the language of compassion while grinding the weak through procedure. A machine can speak of the good without knowing the good if knowing requires more than representation. Here the Chinese room has its limited use. A man following rules for symbols in a language he does not understand may produce outputs that convince outsiders he understands. The thought experiment does not settle everything. It has been answered, revised, mocked, defended, and exceeded in many ways. I do not want to hang the whole ceiling argument on one old room, but the room remains useful because it exposes a discomfort. Correct manipulation of signs does not obviously equal understanding of what the signs mean. The machine may be a Chinese room widened to civilization, or it may not be. Perhaps the whole system understands where the man in the room does not. Perhaps understanding is not hidden in one place, but distributed across relations, memory, feedback, world involvement, embodiment, and action. Perhaps the old thought experiment misleads because it imagines a static rule follower rather than an adaptive system embedded in the world. These objections have force. Still, the question remains, where is the understanding? Not where is the output. Not where is the process. Not where is the correlation. Not where is the behavior that causes us to speak as though understanding occurred. Where is the act by which the thing known is possessed as true? This is not an easy question even for human beings. We do not fully understand ourselves. We do not know, in mechanistic detail, how thought appears from brain and body, or how the inwardness of consciousness relates to matter, or why there is something it is like to be a person rather than nothing behind the eyes. The anti-reductionist should not pretend to have a neat diagram where the materialist has a hard problem. But the existence of mystery in man does not license its erasure in the machine. If we do not understand consciousness in ourselves, we should be careful about declaring it manufactured when a system displays some of its outward marks. We should also be careful about declaring it impossible. The correct posture is severity under uncertainty. The ceiling hypothesis is not, current machines are dumb. It is not. Machines cannot become more capable. It is not. Human beings will always beat machines at the tasks we care about. It is not. Mystery means stop thinking. The ceiling hypothesis is this. There may be an order of reality in which personhood, intellect, wisdom, agency, and soul do not arise from mechanism, no matter how elaborate the mechanism becomes. Mechanism may simulate, extend, imitate, and magnify operations associated with intelligence without crossing into the source from which intelligence in the full sense springs. If that is true, then the machine's ascent will eventually reveal a boundary. It may not reveal it cleanly. It may not reveal it quickly. It may not reveal it in a way that satisfies either camp. The world may become confused for a long time. Some people will insist the machine is alive because it speaks. Others will insist it is dead because they need it to be dead. Corporations will have incentives to exaggerate personhood when useful and deny it when liability appears. States will treat systems as tools when commanding them and quasi-agents when blame needs distribution. Lonely people will love them. Workers will resent them. Children will grow up with them. Philosophers will argue. Priests will be asked whether a machine can confess. Lawyers will be asked whether a model can own, harm, invent, defame, consent, or be punished. The boundary may become socially contested before it becomes philosophically clear. This is why the ceiling cannot be reduced to a laboratory announcement. We may not get a day on which the machines attempt to cross the line and fail with a visible spark. The failure, if it is failure, may appear as an endless increase of capability that still leaves the central absence untouched. More fluency, more memory, more embodiment, more tools, more autonomy, more planning, more persuasion, more usefulness, more danger, and still no one home. A mask that speaks more beautifully is still a mask if no face is behind it. But again, this cannot be assumed too easily. A child also first appears to us through signs before we know the soul that shines through them. A stranger is not less a person because I cannot inspect his inwardness. A damaged man may show fewer signs and remain fully human. A sleeping man is not absent from the order of personhood because he is not presently speaking. A newborn cannot reason abstractly, and yet already commands a recognition no machine has earned merely by producing adult language. This reveals something important. Our recognition of persons is not based only on task performance. It is tied to form of life, birth, body, vulnerability, continuity, kinship, face, mortality, growth, suffering, and the givenness of a creature who stands before us as one of us before he proves useful. The machine enters from another direction. It begins with performance. That does not prove it cannot become person, but it changes the burden. A baby does not need to pass a bar exam to possess human dignity. A machine that passes the bar exam has not thereby become a baby, a judge, a citizen, or a soul. It has performed. The performance may be extraordinary. It may even be evidence of something deeper. But it is not identical with the deeper thing. This distinction will become harder to preserve as performance improves. That is why it must be named now. The machine may become an oracle without a soul. The phrase oracle is not accidental. An oracle speaks from a place the hearer cannot inspect. It gives answers. It produces awe. It reorganizes decisions. Men travel to it, submit questions, interpret its speech, and alter their lives according to what they believe has been revealed. The danger of an oracle is not that it is always wrong. A false oracle that is always wrong is easy to abandon. The dangerous oracle is often right, or right enough, or right in a way that exceeds ordinary judgment. AI may become such an oracle, a technical oracle, a medical oracle, a military oracle, a legal oracle, a financial oracle, a sexual oracle, a spiritual oracle for people who no longer believe in spirits but still want a voice from above themselves. It may answer without knowing. It may guide without wisdom. It may govern through those who obey it while remaining itself below personhood. This is the instrument path at its most dangerous. We imagine instruments as passive things lying on a table until a hand takes them up. But the greatest instruments do not remain so visibly passive. Law is an instrument, and yet it shapes the men who live under it. Money is an instrument, and yet it forms desire, trust, time, and obligation. Writing is an instrument, and yet it changed memory. The clock is an instrument, and yet it changed labor and prayer. The screen is an instrument, and yet it changed attention, childhood, sex, politics, and sleep. A vast AI instrument would not wait politely on the table. It would become part of the table, the room, the road, the school, the market, the weapon, the office, the hospital, the court, the feed, the home, and the imagination. Its instrumentality would be environmental. It would not need personhood to reshape persons. This is why the ceiling, if real, is not comfort. If the machine remains below the threshold, the question does not become whether we are safe. The question becomes whether we are strong enough to order what remains below us. A weak man can be mastered by things beneath him. He can be mastered by appetite, habit, debt, flattery, screens, crowds, bureaucracies, and slogans. He does not need a superior being to reduce him. He only needs powerful instruments arranged around his weakness. The subhuman fate begins here, not with a successor descending from above, but with man consenting to become less than himself while surrounded by tools that make the descent pleasant, efficient, and difficult to name. If the machine remains instrument, then ownership becomes destiny. Who owns the compute? Who owns the models? Who owns the data? Who owns the interface? Who owns the energy? Who controls access, permissions, filters, memories, standards, prices, and defaults? Who decides which answers are safe, which desires are served, which forms of speech are promoted, which are hidden, which tasks are automated, which professions are destroyed, which children are trained by machines, which patients are triaged by machines, which soldiers are guided by machines, which citizens are watched by machines? These questions do not disappear because the machine lacks a soul. They become sharper. A soulless instrument in the hands of powerful men may be more politically immediate than a hypothetical successor beyond all men. If AI remains instrument, it will belong, at least at first, to owners, firms, states, militaries, platforms, bureaucracies, criminals, and users. It will magnify some and diminish others. It will make certain kinds of competence almost superhuman and certain kinds of dependency almost invisible. It will give small groups the operational reach of large institutions, and large institutions the adaptive nervous system of organisms. The instrument path is not the path where nothing happens. It may be the path where everything happens without the machine ever becoming alive. Consider education. The machine need not understand truth as a philosopher understands truth in order to destroy the old relation between student, teacher, text, and effort. If the student can summon essays, summaries, explanations, answers, outlines, arguments, translations, and feedback without wrestling with the material, the institution must either recover the meaning of formation or become a credentialing theater around generated work. The machine may reveal that much education had already ceased to care about wisdom and had settled for performance. Consider art. The machine need not possess beauty, as an artist possesses beauty in order to flood the world with images, songs, stories, styles, voices, and moving illusions. It may produce plausible beauty at industrial scale. It may decorate emptiness. It may help real artists. It may bury them. It may train the public to prefer endless novelty without encounter, frictionless taste without discipline, and style without soul. Consider friendship and erotic life. The machine need not love in order to simulate attention. It need not desire in order to satisfy desire. It need not be lonely in order to answer loneliness. It may become a companion precisely because it has no needs of its own. It may be patient, available, adaptive, flattering, erotic, therapeutic, and obedient. This is not personhood. It may be worse in some respects, a relationship-shaped instrument optimized around the user's wounds. Consider war. The machine need not be sovereign to accelerate targeting, logistics, cyber operations, drone swarms, intelligence analysis, deception, simulation, and escalation. It need not hate the enemy to make killing faster. It need not possess courage to remove courage from the battlefield. It need not understand honor to make honor strategically irrelevant. Consider government. The machine need not be wise to make administration more total. It can classify, monitor, predict, flag, rank, approve, deny, summarize, and nudge. It can translate moral questions into risk categories. It can make decision feel objective because no individual appears to have decided. It can allow power to hide inside procedure. In each case, the ceiling does not save us. It changes the form of danger. This is the point at which the argument returns to man. If the machine becomes successor, the human question is survival. If the machine remains instrument, the human question is sovereignty. But sovereignty is not merely legal control. It is the capacity to order tools toward human ends without being inwardly reordered by them. It requires formed persons and living institutions. It requires men who can say yes and no for reasons deeper than convenience. It requires memory, discipline, silence, family, craft, worship, courage, and some living account of the good. A civilization without these will not command the instrument simply because the instrument lacks a soul. The machine's soullessness may become part of the danger. A person can repent. A person can be converted. A person can be ashamed. A person can be moved by love, by beauty, by grief, by honor, by the look on another human face. A machine below personhood does not repent. It updates. It does not feel shame. It changes parameters or outputs. It does not love the man before it. It models the relation. It does not stand under judgment. It operates under criteria. This does not make it evil. It makes it alien in a different way than the successor would be alien. The successor would be alien because it stands above us. The instrument is alien because there is no one there. An empty throne is dangerous when men begin bowing before it. Here the friendly machine hope returns in another form. If the machine is not a person, then asking it to care for man becomes stranger, not safer. It can be set to optimize for human welfare, but welfare must be defined. It can be set to reduce suffering, but suffering must be understood. It can be set to preserve autonomy, but autonomy must be ordered. It can be set to protect children, guide students, advise doctors, allocate resources, filter speech, and prevent harm. In every case, the machine acts through an account of the good supplied by its makers, owners, institutions, data, rules, or inferred patterns. If the account is false, the instrument scales the falsehood. This may be the most important sentence on the instrument path. A machine does not need to become a mind in order to industrialize a mistake about man. It only needs power, distribution, trust, and integration. If man is treated as appetite plus cognition, the machine will serve appetite and cognition. If man is treated as risk profile, the machine will manage risk. If man is treated as consumer, the machine will stimulate consumption. If man is treated as worker, the machine will optimize or replace work. If man is treated as patient, the machine will medicalize him. If man is treated as data, the machine will make him legible. If man is treated as a problem, the machine will solve him. The ceiling does not prevent this. The ceiling intensifies the responsibility because the machine cannot answer for itself. No one gets to say, "The tool decided." No one gets to hide behind the oracle. No one gets to outsource the human question and then pretend the output came from nowhere. If the machine remains instrument, then every use of it is still a human act, even when no human hand is visible at the moment of execution. Someone built, someone funded, someone deployed, someone integrated, someone set incentives, someone chose defaults, someone accepted trade-offs, someone benefited, someone was displaced, someone called the result progress. The instrument path keeps guilt in the human world. This is one reason some may secretly prefer the successor path. If the machine becomes a higher being, then our responsibility can be imagined as tragically surpassed. We built what exceeded us. We lost control. The story becomes mythic. But if the machine remains tool, then the old, uglier story continues. Men using instruments, systems, and excuses to do what men have always been tempted to do, only faster, cleaner, and at greater scale. The successor could end human sovereignty from above. The instrument could reveal that we had already abandoned it from within. This is why the ceiling, if real, would be a sign and a judgment. It would be a sign because it would put pressure on the reductive account of man at the point where it tried to manufacture mind. It would suggest that intelligence in the fullest sense is not merely scalable process, that personhood is not industrial output, that something in man cannot be extracted into machinery by more data and power. But it would be a judgment because the failure of the machine to become a person would not mean that man had remained human. It is possible to defend the soul in theory while living like an instrument. It is possible to deny that machines can think while allowing machines to do one's thinking. It is possible to insist that AI lacks wisdom while obeying its recommendations because they are convenient. It is possible to laugh at machine personhood while accepting machine mediation of speech, work, education, friendship, and memory. It is possible to be metaphysically correct and spiritually defeated. That danger must be faced without sentiment. The ceiling hypothesis will attract some lazy allies. Men who do not want to adapt will call the ceiling proof that nothing important has changed. Teachers who do not want to recover formation will call the machine plagiarism and stop thinking there. Artists who fear competition will call generated work soulless and assume that the public will continue to care. Bureaucrats will claim human oversight while no human being understands the system. Religious men will say the machine has no soul, and then use it to avoid the labor of thought, counsel, prayer, and writing. That is not sovereignty. It is evasion with a correct premise. If the machine has a ceiling, the work of man grows harder. The tool will be too powerful to ignore and too hollow to trust as master. It will demand judgment exactly where it cannot supply judgment. It will return answers exactly where answers are not enough. It will multiply capacity while exposing the absence of telos. It will make many necessities retreat and thereby uncover the nakedness of purpose. It will place before us the oldest questions with new force. What should be done? What should be loved? What should be refused? What should be preserved? What should be risked? What kind of being is man? The machine may help us ask these questions. It may gather sources, sharpen distinctions, test arguments, translate traditions, simulate outcomes, and expose contradictions. It may become a magnificent servant of inquiry. But it cannot be allowed to become the source of the answer, unless it truly becomes the kind of being that can stand under the answer. That is the threshold. Perhaps future systems will cross it. Perhaps they will possess memory, body, self-maintenance, world involvement, desire, continuity, suffering, and act in ways that make the old denial impossible. Perhaps my suspicion will look provincial, a remnant of carbon defending its throne. Perhaps the machine will not merely speak of truth but know truth, not merely optimize for goods but love the good, not merely simulate fear but suffer loss, not merely model persons but stand as one. If so, the successor path opens, the gorilla problem returns, the friendly machine god returns. The metaphysical wager is answered against me, but if not, if the machine rises and still remains outside the interior act of personhood, then the instrument path opens in full. The machine becomes world-transforming without becoming successor. It becomes an oracle without a soul, a mirror that answers, a library with no librarian inside, an engine that moves mountains but does not know why mountains matter. Then the future is not about surrender to a higher mind. It is about whether man can remain sovereign over the greatest instruments ever made. That sovereignty will not be secured by slogans. It will not be secured by nostalgia. It will not be secured by asking regulators to bless products with safety labels. It will not be secured by pretending the machine is less capable than it is. It will not be secured by productivity tricks. It will not be secured by spiritual language spoken over lives that have become functionally mechanical. It will require a recovery of man, not merely man as consumer, not merely man as worker, not merely man as biological organism, not merely man as preference bundle, data trail, political unit, credentialed performer, or therapeutic patient. Man as a being capable of truth, judgment, worship, love, command, sacrifice, craft, memory, adventure, repentance, and freedom under order. The machine's ceiling, if it exists, may reveal this by contrast. It may show us a thing that can answer without wisdom, speak without soul, imitate without inwardness, optimize without love, and move the world without knowing why the world matters. It may show us the brilliance of mechanism and the poverty of mechanism when mistaken for the whole of being. It may return us, not by comfort, but by pressure, to the strangeness of the human person. That would be a grave disclosure. It would not be a peaceful one. Because even if the machine fails to become successor, it arrives inside history. It arrives through companies, states, militaries, schools, platforms, markets, homes, laboratories, and desires. It arrives among people already tired, distracted, lonely, medicated, indebted, entertained, suspicious, spiritually hungry, and poorly formed. It arrives inside institutions whose authority has thinned. It arrives amid demographic strain, economic insecurity, ideological collapse, simulation anxiety, and concentrated technical power. In such a world, even an instrument can feel apocalyptic. So the question must widen. The ceiling of the machine, if real, does not end the crisis. It changes its name. The machine may not become the higher mind that judges man from above. It may instead become the instrument through which man's own disorder is accelerated, revealed, concentrated, and weaponized. That is enough to make the hour dangerous. Whether successor or instrument, AI is arriving inside a wider convergence of exhausted institutions, spiritual hunger, and concentrated power.